everyone, this is Chris with Sticker Fab, and today I am with our 2025 Toyota 4Runner. What we're going to do is switch out the Squadron Sport to the KC Pro Era 4, and I'm just going to do this so I can get another set on this vehicle so we can show off our decals on it, and then I'm going to move the Squadron Sport to the Land Cruiser with some new brackets that are coming in soon. What I wanted to tell you guys is that this installation is pretty much the same as my full install video, but we will have to run another circuit because this does have backlighting. So we'll have to have a way to light that up. You can see there's actually one negative and two positives in this guy right here. So we'll have to have another switch inside of the cabin. Ideally, you'll just put all your backlighting on one. In case you have other lamps, they'll all connect together. You'll turn all the backlighting on at once. I did want to show you a difference in these brackets. This bracket, you can slip in right here, right where the hood mounts to the vehicle. However, on this one, we're gonna have to use a technique of taking one bolt completely off, running it through one hole, and then we'll have to do the same thing for the other bolt because I don't want both of those bolts to be off at the same time or the hood will just fall down. I'm gonna do this install just by myself. So it's kind of precarious. You gotta make sure that your bolts have enough thread to catch the hood. If you take one off, the other one has to be threaded enough. So be careful with this setup. Let's get right into it. First, let me show you a side that I've completed and that I will have to take back off. You can see I've run it through those two holes, no problem. But when I was thinking about mounting the actual lamp, I realized this distance isn't very far. And on the Baja Squadron Sport, they were very tiny lamps, but I didn't want to move the whole bracket and the light at the same time, like kind of snake it in there and bolt it up. I figured, well, I'll just mount the light second and that'll be fine. And it was using two open-ended wrenches, I was able to get it on there, but I think the bolt is just too big on this thing. So I pre-mounted it to the bracket. So I'm gonna have to hold the entire assembly in there and then take off one bolt, get that bolted on, and then do the second bolt. Let's do it right now. Quick refresher, this is 12 millimeters right here. We're gonna start with just hand threading everything. So these bolts are loose enough for me to take one off. Ideally, you will put some painter's tape, just like the last install, right at that back edge of the hood at least, in case you ding this into there. Maybe underneath that bolt too, if you do it the same way I do with the light already mounted. Now, we just got to pick a bolt to take out. I'm gonna make sure this one's tight. I'm gonna give it a little quarter turn. Let's go ahead and take this top bolt off. Actually, I can feel that there's tension. And this side's gonna be a little bit different than the other side because the other side actually had the hood prop. So I'm holding a little pressure upward, taking the bolt off. I'd slide it into there. I have to tilt it at an angle. Try not to touch my paint. I heard this underground paint is not very thick from the factory. Might have to push the hood up to make sure it doesn't cross thread. Use my head to hold the hood up, whatever you can. So that's in there. So I'm good there. I can back this one out pretty safely. Feel it move over just a little bit, but I think we're still aligned. Careful not to drop any bolts. You really don't want to have to fish one out. Or even worse, go to Toyota and grab another bolt. Move the hood around so I find that hole. It's threading in pretty easily. Just my hands. All right, we'll get this hand tight as much as possible. I pretty much do all pairs of bolts kind of like you would on a wheel. I don't crank down all the way on one and then do the other. Just give it a little bit, a little bit. Now let's crank down a little bit more. A little bit more. Did it one last time. All right, we're good to go on this side. I gotta take that other bracket off and mount the lamp first. Let me go do that. All right, guys and gals, I think I'm finishing this video up several days later because I needed another switch for that backlighting. I did this the easy way. I hope you guys are watching my first video if you really want some more in-depth knowledge about how to get these things wired. Since I'd already run some wiring through the firewall, I pulled it out a little bit, and then I taped the new KC harness and pulled all of it through, and it came through on this side perfectly, no problems at all. There's the old Baja wiring down there. And then we have the new KC wiring up in here. And you can see there are actually 3 wires on this, even though it has another function over the Baja Squadron Sports. This does not pass through a ground cable. You have your yellow wire, which is the power wire in this setup. And then you have your white wire, which is used for the backlighting. And you have your green wire, which is used for the positive, and we'll change out this logo to KC. Those will power the main beams. If you have the toggle switch from KC, I don't think you'd be able to light both of these up at the same time, but if you put them on separate circuits and turn them both on, it looks like you can light up the main beams and the backlighting. And here's what those look like lit up. In the middle, you can see that KC is illuminated as well. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So I didn't want to run a bunch of extra wires in here, so I piggybacked some of the similar connections off of these wires to each other. So our ground wire is this white wire. Without that wire, you wouldn't be able to get this little LED to illuminate. And we need that for the other switch, so I tapped this into that switch. So I used Posi-Taps. These are a little bit cleaner than those alligator ones or the T-Taps. The connections are ultra easy to make. So since we have this yellow power wire here, both of these switches need to have power inputs. So one is connected directly to that wiring, and then we are splicing off of there for that other one. There's a relay in this setup, so the power is actually not traveling through the switch, it's traveling through the relay. These are just sending a small signal to the relay. There's not a lot of current going through here at all. So that leaves us with a third wire. The green wire on each switch is connected to one circuit. This, of course, powering the main beams, and this powering that backlighting. And I've done all of this setup outside of here because I'm going to have to get these switches mounted inside of there and pull the wiring through the other side. Instead of grounding this out to the chassis, I already knew of a ground because we have our footwell lighting right here, and this is the ground for that. So I just ran that wire right in there. Now I'll put this back and connect it to the original auto high beam switch. So what is interesting, in this SR5, we had this plugged into the back of a blank, and in other vehicles, I looked it up, this is where the 120 volt AC inverter goes to. So I'm guessing this is wiring for the inverter. I'm gonna move this up to the blank right there because I'm gonna have the backlight switch for NA auxiliary lights right here, and then I'm gonna have those ditch lights right here. So I've pulled the respective connectors out to this side, I'll plug them to the switches and then just pop them back in. Alright, so now I've switched that label to KC. I'll button this back up, I'll pull that Baja wiring back through, I'll pull it all out of the engine bay, and I'll just kind of run the KC wiring the same exact way that I did in the last video. So with the KC lights set up, there is a second harness that just goes to the lights. Now, if you had a relay system already, what you would do is connect the black wire to the chassis ground or another ground terminal. One of the lines for your backlighting and one of the lines for the main beam. And at this point, you would be good to go. You don't need to use that additional relay. You can run all the power into your auxiliary switch box. All right, so I hope you guys tidy up your engine bay a little bit better than mine. Again, I don't know what the final setup will be in this vehicle. I don't know if I'm going to get an aftermarket auxiliary module that will make a really clean setup with a little fuse box over here where I only have to run one thing in the cabin for a switch, or if I'll go with a wireless remote. But I have all the extra wiring just tucked down in here for now, which isn't really a huge deal unless you start to get multiple relays in here, and then it'll just be like cobwebs under there. So before you close your hood, test your setup one more time. You can see right here, the backlighting is actually visible in pretty bright light. That's pretty cool. Also, before you shut your hood, make sure that there's nothing left out. You haven't left any sockets, wiring, clips, anything under there. Then go ahead, shut it. You're done with your install. So for products like this, please visit my website at stickerfab.com. And to get notified of more videos like this, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and hit the bell notification icon for the latest and greatest things I'm coming out with for the 2025 and up Toyota 4Runner.